and I turn around trying to find some Iowa fans to celebrate with, and I'm just getting double birded by 45-year-old men.
Welcome back to the ANF Podcast, where we cover Iowa sports.
Today we're going to do a recap of the Iowa State game, then move into a preview of the Iowa-Western Michigan game, and then wrap it up with some picks. That game had some serious big game energy to it.
It did.
From the minute we got down there, we got in there about an hour early. Crowd filled in early.
Yep.
Had a jet flyover.
Yeah, the flyover was awesome.
Crowd was packed. Had all the makings of a typical.
Crowd was there 20 minutes early, it felt like. And
Yeah.
You could see on the players, kind of body language and their reaction to everybody. It just had that big game feel the entire time.
We were sitting at the 50-yard line, row 7, so we were really close to the players. I think my main takeaway pregame was I got to see Cade, warm up a bit. He came to the sideline and just kind of trying to check his demeanor. And
Right.
at one point he was trying to put his towel in. You could see his hand shaking. You could hardly get his towel into his pants.
Right.
I think that just sums up the energy. I don't know if he was necessarily ready for that energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's his first Iowa State game.
He's obviously played in big games, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Michigan, but it's just still a foreign environment too. He had no idea what that environment was going to look like. He obviously gets the hype from other players and like the setup, like this is going to be a big game, but once you're in it.
Iowa State's win total, what is it, 3.5, 4.5 this
Right.
year? You expect to go into that game. You don't expect that kind of atmosphere.
Right. It's like, oh, I'm playing like probably Purdue or Indiana caliber of team. And now all of a sudden this game feels like it's, for a championship.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, I bet it's very hard to prepare for a player for like that. Or as a player, I bet other players try to get you ready for it. But once you step in that environment, even as a fan, even like your energy level goes up, your anxiety goes up, and you can just feel it.
Oh, I was sick to my stomach before the game.
Yeah.
I haven't felt that way for a while at a game, but just knowing how much it meant, it might be the last Iowa State game we see in our lifetime with conference realignment. To come away with a win was just absolutely huge.
Yeah.
We could break into the defensive breakdown now.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first thing we want to bring up, and it's something I don't know if even the announcers brought it up a lot, but what we saw from the defensive line, I mean, we teased this out in the preview, but the defensive line was absolutely dominant. One player in particular that we want to highlight was Aaron Graves.
Right.
He might have played the most complete, dominant performance from any D tackle we've seen since Davion Nixon, and he actually did it more within the scheme than Davion used to. Davion used to, kind of work outside the scheme with swim moves and try and make plays.
Yeah. And from our vantage point where we were watching it, you couldn't really tell who was winning the defensive line and why there was such a push consistently. I think obviously Black had a hell of a game at the one tech. Basically, the one technique for the defensive line was dominant for the entire first half at least, and maybe into the third, most of the third quarter as well. But Graves only played about 20 snaps, maybe like low 30s, but he had 3 wins that we haven't seen at the one tech since Davion, and I don't even recall Davion winning that well.
Not that way.
And he didn't get highlighted, and obviously his stats weren't there, and he didn't get a lot of praise on Twitter or anything like that post game. But that was one of those games where all right, he's got a year and a half left.
Yeah,
he's a 3-year guy. We anticipated him before the season. It's clear now. He's gone after.
If he was a starter on this team, he's first team All Big Ten.
Right.
Like there's no doubt in my mind.
And it's so valuable to have a backup D tackle play those type of snaps. Usually that's when teams rotate their defensive line depth, there's a massive drop off. But to actually see, he outplayed. Black played a great game still, but the snaps he had, they were just to a caliber we haven't seen at Iowa.
Just completely disruptive play.
Right. Completely
end a drive.
Yeah.
And I think the thing to highlight here too is with Iowa playing this bend don't break style. Usually, you go back to 2010. This was the crux of Iowa's defense was that we used to get into these long drives where you get 8 plays into a drive and we wouldn't sub on the D line.
Right.
Primarily because we didn't believe in our backups.
As the 2010 season, we played 4 D linemen 70 plus snaps a game.
Yeah.
It was Claiborne, Benz.
And they always gassed out then. We always give up a back-breaking drive to end the game.
Right.
Now when we get to that 30-yard mark, you'll see us at least subbing our 2D tackles.
Right.
And that's such a huge moment, that you can trust those dudes. And that's that's where we really need plays to be made, and they've made the plays they need to make.
And it's the recruiting depth that's Iowa's built since 2015 or the 2015 recruiting class. Generally, we used to have to bring in walk-ons in those positions sometimes, maybe redshirt seniors.
Mm-hmm.
Since Iowa's been able to recruit at a different caliber, since building a new facility and having a better recruiting classes, those depth rotations are just been better, and it's why Iowa's entire program is ascended in a way since that recruiting bump.
I think the one weakness we want to highlight now, and this is a weakness that's actually going to disappear now, was Deshaun Lee. And
I wouldn't consider it even a weakness from what I saw from him.
Yeah,
I think from him, like as a redshirt freshman, like he was the duck. Like that, he was the target of every offensive play for them in big downs. So they were gonna, if he's a man-to-man, they're gonna target receiver he was guarding.
Yep.
In 2nd and 10, they were gonna target the zone he was guarding.
Mm-hmm.
But he never got. I mean, he got beat over the top on a 4th and 10. But as a redshirt freshman, I'd rather have you be a step late to everything, and he was in some cases just a step late, not trusting his eyes.
Yeah.
But if you're a step, too aggressive, that game's completely different. And yeah, he had kind of a rough, I would say a rougher game. It was definitely, It was obvious to any fan base that's really following who they're attacking. He was the guy.
But that's also just a product of, the offense had nowhere else it could go. Mm-hmm. So when it was going to have success, it was going to have success against him. It was going to have success eventually.
And you saw him learn. You saw him progress through the entire game. Yeah. I think they had one play where they would motion away to 4 receivers on the right side and have a solo receiver on his side. Mm-hmm. They ran it, first time, sometime in the first half, second or third drive, got a slant pass on him, and he tackled him for like 9 yards.
Yep.
Then we're up by 10. He sees the same motion, and it's a little different structure, but it has the same kind of pre-motion feel to the play. And they run the same slant pass against him. He breaks on it faster than he did the first time. He breaks it up, and it turns a 2nd and 10 into a 3rd and 10.
Yep.
It's like that's what you want to see. You want to see progression. You want to see him understanding what they're trying to do to him. But he had the core thought correctly of how to play that position in that game. They're not running the ball. They don't have dynamic athletes. Don't let them beat me on a double move. Don't let them beat me over the top with some, combo route that gives me some weird zone assignment. And I'd rather have him lose 15 times on an under route or an in route than the way he lost.
And it was an interesting scheme we came out and played. It wasn't what I anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
On 3rd downs, we almost went strictly man-to-man too high. Mm-hmm. And I think what that was more of an indictment was of the Iowa State run game.
Right.
So, okay, we're going to allow you guys to be probably a little bit more inefficient. You should be on 3rd down because we don't want to get with the big play. And that's, in Phil Parker's mind, the reason he's doing that is because even if you do stack first downs on top of each other, the minute you get inside the 20, even 30-yard line, and those safeties get to creep up a little bit more, the run game is just going to completely disappear.
Right.
And you saw their first drive; they had success. They had they hit the out route several times to the tight end. They hit deep ins, deep outs.
Right. They targeted our linebackers with tight ends and receivers.
And usually when we go to something like that, it's because we don't think that their skill talent is going to be so far in excess of ours that we can't tackle after a catch. And that played out.
Well, we felt just very comfortable not hiding any looks. Yeah. Truly. I felt like we were showing the majority of our looks before the snap, and we were just allowing our guys to play fast. I think Kyler Fisher, he came in and played, basically the designated linebacker downs on 3rd and long. So we have sub packages that we only run on 3rd and 6 or longer because we just essentially you're not running the ball confidently. So we're going to sub out. We're going to usually go dime in most situations, bring another DB on the field other than just Castro. And then we're going to sub out Nick Jackson now for Kyler Fisher. So going forward, you're going to see 37 come in for 10, and he's going to be more of the coverage line. He's basically built like a safety.
Yeah.
And he didn't have the pass breakup all game, I feel like, but he was damn near on like 3 of them.
I mean, the Iowa State tight end made a hell of a catch against him one time.
Yeah. I feel like he's built, and he's so predictive of where the route's going. He knows how they're attacking him, and there were some very well-thrown balls against him, some very good routes, and Iowa State's got some real tight ends. Mm-hmm. But it's a very good sign that, you bring on this coverage linebacker that essentially behaves like a safety, thinks like a safety, and it's going to be really beneficial to Iowa going forward.
Another call I want to bring up, it was an interesting one. In the moment, I recognized it as like, wow, we caught something there. Mm-hmm. But it was when it was 3-0. They were in a 3rd and short, and all of a sudden – however, they motioned to a different set where they kind of evened up, and then all of a sudden you see the whole defense react. They go, you see the linebackers are all talking. Kyler Fisher comes from the slot, comes down just outside the D end. He comes off the edge. It's that play where Nort comes in the play, bounces off, and then we make the tackle out.
That's like the 3rd and 1, right?
Yeah. But it was just one of those moments where it just goes back to this Phil Parker genius idea. It's like you let your players play just simplistic schemes, but then you make very small, subtle adjustments where they can then imprint their will on the game.
Right.
And in that moment, I don't know what they saw or what rule they had, but they had a rule and they followed it and they all recognized it.
Blew it up.
They shifted the line and it fell apart.
It makes offenses have a sense of false security against them. You hear every single quarterback, it's always the same line. The offense coordinator and quarterback, they have the same cadence of how they speak about Iowa's defense. You got to take what they give you.
Yep.
And it's just like this false sense of security that you're always going to be, you're like, oh, we're comfortable against these guys. We know what zones are coming. But then we tweak one aspect of it at the last moment. In big moments or any, big 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 4s. And that one tweak, when you're almost like kind of fall into this flow of how to beat this defense, and then this one tweak completely flips how you play it. And it just crumbles schemes and crumbles ways people attack Iowa. And it's essentially like a brilliant way to always, we're always playing our system.
Well, defense. 3rd and 3 is just scary.
It is.
And that's just an odd space for any offense. When you run the ball on 1st and 2nd and you get into a short yard situation, usually you're feeling very comfortable, especially if you have an athletic QB. Against Iowa, that's when the game starts. Yeah. It's like, okay, we're going to make you do this iteration, maybe 12, 13 times in a game.
Right.
We have to just guess you twice.
And by the time we get to halftime, we're going to know exactly how you're attacking us.
Exactly.
And our adjustments are going to be, much more played out of like, I know exactly what we want to stop.
Yeah. And there's only so many ways to beat a defense.
Right. Like the entire summary of like the first 2 games for Iowa against Utah State and Iowa State, I would give an A+ to the defense. Like obviously the starters came out against Utah State with 9 minutes left and the game changed and they had a better time, running the ball and attacked us and scored late. But we've done exactly what Phil wants us to do. Like I think 2 explosive plays in 2 games, over 20 yards, consistently holding up with just 4 in the front 7. I mean, our defensive line has not given up, any rushing lanes that could actually get creased in 2 full games. And now you think of only 1 touchdown truly against the starters, which is a 4th and 10 lob pass to the back shoulder. Like people have been like, oh, the defense doesn't look as good as it usually does. That was if Phil grades out this defense, he's putting A++. That is we played exactly how we want to play. We're not giving up the run against 4 rushers, and we're not giving up explosive plays.
Yep.
That is what we are trying to do. That is the game plan of Iowa.
Yep.
And yeah, there's pass rush hasn't been there. There's been breakdowns. Have been maybe they got more yards or whatever against Utah State and Iowa State. But the core of what I was trying to do, it's executing at a very high level early in the season.
Yep. And that's without when they're maybe all potentially Big Ten corners.
Right. So yeah, Deshaun Lee's
you put that piece in there and man, it gets scary quick.
You're looking for that duck again.
Yeah.
It's probably Castro now, who just had a pick 6 and made a very good play.
Yeah.
But he's truly, if you're throwing on 1st down, you're probably going to attack him in the passing game.
Yeah.
And Nick Jackson, who was second team
all ACC player.
Right. And he's very athletic and is going to be slowly learning the defense more and more each week.
Yeah.
There really isn't a clear game plan against Iowa's defense now, especially when you just watching Cooper live. I mean, terrifying as a opposing
at
coordinator.
Any moment
or
he
fan.
can just ruin everything.
Right. And there you can see even Iowa State was like, man, we just can't throw at them.
Yeah.
Like they picked them perfectly on a 3rd and 7. They run a stacked formation on the right side. They run 2 guys off. Essentially, our defenders and their receivers are picking Cooper. They run a drag to a guy. It should be wide open. Cooper sniffs it, goes over the top, and crushes the guy like a half yard downfield.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, well, that's why you don't target him. Like he's just going to eliminate plays.
And truly, like if the ball doesn't hit off X's head, we close this game out 26. We don't even blink twice.
Right. That was
Cooper
a great
weight on that pick.
I mean, to have 2 players recognize a scheme that's trying to beat cover 4 in that way or cover 3.
Well, you just throwing at those 2.
Right. What are you doing?
What a nightmare.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I want to break down is the Castro pick. So they actually used that similar scheme against it was a Nick Jackson Cooper combo where Nick kind of recognized it late. They ran in behind Nick, and then they ran like a kind of a quasi out flag where it's like had an angle to it. Rocco put it 3 yards to the sideline, missed the entire pass. For the throw that Castro picked off, they run that exact same concept. We are rolling down in cover 3.
Yep.
X is rolling down. So then Castro's kind of in like, okay, he's playing the sideline with a lot of room.
And he has no noise in the middle either.
Well, he does have a little bit of noise on like a quick in because Deshaun's playing off. So he does have to worry about that in.
Right.
But it's hilarious. You can see it if you go back and watch the play. He's got his eyes right on Rocco, and Rocco looks right at him. Right before the play, Rocco looks right at him, just a red freshman move.
Pre-snap?
Pre-snap. And Castro goes, and like he knows it's coming to him.
Yeah.
So you see him. He maybe pedals a step and a half.
Yeah.
And then
he's all over it.
Foot going back, and then just It couldn't have caught it easier.
Yeah.
It was almost like those moments where it's like he's a redshirt junior. He's playing a redshirt freshman QB in a 2nd and 15 down.
Right.
And he just baits it.
Yeah.
And
he knows he's got, this is how you're going to stack this. If you're going to stack it for a 2nd and 10 out route.
Watching that play back, it's just so funny to see that little thing. And it's all about eyes on the QB. It's like, that's why you play zone. Mm-hmm. You have these intelligent guys who run shit over and over again.
Yeah.
It's because you have those moments where a guy just gets a little like a spidey sense.
A twinge.
Oh shit, it's coming my way.
Yeah.
And he could have sat inside, played that in route.
He smelled it the moment it was snapped.
Yeah.
He gave him space for it.
And that was such an awesome moment in the stands, just seeing him pick it and run it in. And we're all going crazy, the 4 of us in there.
Yeah.
And I turned around trying to find some Iowa fans to celebrate with. And I'm just getting double birded by 45-year-old men. So many people are flicking me off. Granted, we were going crazy. We were being a little louder early in the game.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, I'm not turning around again the rest of the game.
You forget what stadium you're in for a second.
Yeah, exactly. It was such a great moment, though.
Yeah.
Let's move on to offense, though.
Yeah, let's do it. I think first person you have to bring up, it's the easy one, is just Patterson.
Yeah.
I mean, what a game for him. What a moment.
Yeah.
Obviously, the long run, I think it was 60 yards he had.
Yeah.
Sprung it. Basically changed the game instantly. It was like, Iowa's going to take a 3-0 lead against Iowa State.
Yeah.
Kirk's going to be happy the rest of the game. We're going to go back up and play our style. But I think his most impressive run was the
touchdown.
2nd and 6, was it, from the goal line?
Yeah.
Power hit, and it didn't hit.
Super messy.
I mean, our center missed his block. Our right guard missed his block. The puller really didn't hit it. Basically, we jammed it up enough bodies on bodies, but a lot of guys lost.
Yeah.
Truly. It wasn't like a well-blocked play. And Patterson, rather than stopping his feet or trying to banana it out a little bit, his sense of his body and his sense of how to sneak through something.
Yeah.
And you saw it in his senior high school film where he just always just kind of finished runs and did it correctly.
Yeah.
It all played out so quickly, and he hit it. And watching it back, I still don't know how he did that.
Yeah.
How he didn't get tripped up, how he even saw the hole, because there was none. There was no hole. He just there's a little crease there. There's a little trench for him to run in.
Yeah.
This is a great run. And when I'm starting to think about if I was going to have a great season, if I wants to be this team, you need these surprise guys to develop. You need these surprise stories of Wadley in 2015 and all these kind of Hawkinson 2018, and you need these kind of surprise performers. And Patterson just stamped his name I'm going to be a factor this year. I'm going to be, if Caleb is not putting his nose down and running behind his pads, I'm going to be that guy who's going to get 15 carries.
Well, it's good. It's nice because it's going to put a little bit of an onus on Caleb to start running a little harder.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that later in the game. Even the rep where he didn't get the first down the last drive,
right?
He still ran through a guy. And that was the first time I've seen him really square a guy up. He could have, tried to make a move.
It was the first time I've seen him do it, and it was
took him for 5 yards.
It looked just like Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah,
this guy's got the Jonathan Taylor build. He's got the size for it. He's got the speed, and what Taylor did so well, even as a true freshman, he played behind his pads. And if you're that big and you play behind your pads and accelerate well, guys can't hold you for less than 3 yards post contact.
Yeah,
and Caleb, he's not fumbled for that reason. Taylor had some fumbling issues because if you constantly play through contact, you're going to fumble more.
Yeah,
but coaches are harping on him dude, look at that.
Got to run harder.
You could have done that all game.
Yeah,
we could have averaged 6 more yards a carry. I mean, probably 2.5 more yards a carry on your runs.
Yeah,
if you attacked the defenders that way you attacked that guy.
Yeah,
I don't want to blame him too much because he clearly made his name his freshman year by housing stuff.
Yeah,
and Goodson, Wadley went to the same problems. 2015 Wadley housed some big runs. Goodson 20.
He just built a lot different than those guys though. Those guys physically couldn't hold up.
They were legitimately didn't have an option to do that.
Yeah.
They could have ran harder than they did. But he's kind of falling to that I'm trying to go for 70.
Yeah.
And if he just tried to go for 6, this offense would be very hard to stop.
Yeah. Well, it's setting up well because I like having plays that are well schemed up. We're gonna try and trick them here. We're going to try and get Caleb on the edge. We're going to try and run those counters. We saw that counter where we wrapped all around.
That was a really nice play.
It's a beautiful play, and that's a perfect play for Caleb, where he can get on the edge, he can get to full speed, and he's untackable at that moment.
Right.
But now you have a guy who's on the interior who's just going to run chaotically.
Right.
He's going to run messy, but
full speed.
But it's going to be full speed and it's going to be fast.
Yeah.
It's you combo those two guys together, even though it's opposite body types. You'd figure they almost be flipped.
100%.
But having Jazz be in that number 2, it's man, you really can start seeing how this team could actually really be productive on offense.
It was our kind of preseason concern was running back depth. We were man, if we don't have that second running back, it's going to come back to bite us in the ass at some point.
Well, this is a good time to talk about the O-line because the counter looked fantastic.
Right.
Straight ISO lead looked unbelievable.
Right.
Hayden Large had a hell of a game.
Yeah.
He had a couple times where he met linebackers in the hole, took them 5 yards back and planted them. He's going to be a hell of a fullback.
Yeah.
I understand that you have to have other renditions. You have to. We've ran. So funny. In the first 2 games, we probably ran outside zone 3 times. They've gone for -4 every time. I swear to God.
Yeah.
We also had some like pitches that got caught up because it's a first down run. Like we've talked about game flow. When you're down 2 scores, you're playing Iowa. Everyone knows it's a run on first down.
Right.
Iowa can't talk themselves out of it.
I would say can't talk themselves out of not blitzing.
And frankly, in those moments, we do need to start thinking about maybe going like a shotgun max protect and trying to get some. But
I don't think so. I mean, Iowa is 63-2 with an 8-point lead over the last since 2015. And the reason why is when we are up 2 scores, we don't overthink it.
Yeah.
We don't care about offensive metrics. We don't care about getting first downs.
Yeah.
We care about not effing up.
Yeah.
And we just want to hey, they guess us and they play us aggressively. Like, if we need that big first down late, or if we need to, get a score in the next second half.
We'll play dumb now. Maybe we'll
play
flip
dumb
on it later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they got to sell out to stop this now.
Yeah, it's going to suck.
We'll build that in.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to judge the offense. It scored on its first 2 possessions in both games.
Yeah.
It took that vaunted 8-point+ lead.
Yeah.
And Kirk put it on ice in both situations, as he should.
Yeah.
And it's like Iowa's offense sucks again. Like, it accomplished its goal in both games.
Yeah, it's been good when it needs to be good.
Right. Hard to judge it if you judge it just outside those when you take the lead.
Yeah.
You can judge it a little bit with that closeout drive.
Yeah.
But we wanted to kill those timeouts.
Yeah.
Like, Kirk's entire identity is putting your defense in the best position imaginable every single drive.
Only complaint about the final drive is that 3rd and 1, you have a completely eagle down defense.
Right.
We've talked about how well they shoot gaps. You go power, your guard is never going to make it to see a gap.
Well, they just surge the line backwards.
Well, and Lachey's got a gap and a half inside. He's got a wall down on. Like, what they're trying to do is you're trying to get a left guard 4 gaps over in a play that's going to hit in half a second.
Right.
He's never going to make it there. I like to see the ISO lead. The ISO lead was fantastic in that game.
Yeah.
And then, granted, you're trying to account for wash. It's good. Like, power does work if you can get a wash, but Lachey just had too far to go on that one.
And I think Brian has not a bad habit.
He likes power and short yardage for some reason.
No, but he also has if something worked earlier in the game, run it again.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I don't know if it worked earlier in the game though.
Wasn't
counter was what's worked.
Counter, yeah.
That was straight power.
That's straight back to back.
I think he was trying to maybe outthink him, like maybe they were gonna. But same problem we had week 1 where it's like, man, power's just not it.
Mm-hmm.
With these fast defenses, it just happens too fast.
Yeah. Yeah, you get that push, and if safeties are 3 yards off the ball.
Safeties are they're too close.
Yeah. Once again, safeties making the plays. It's not the wash not working. It's not the linebackers, not being blocked. It's legitimately just like there's just
4 free DBs
at numbers
up the field.
Right. I agree. But going back, like, offense has done its job. It's taken a 14-0 lead and a 10-point lead in back-to-back games, and then it's hard to really judge those offenses past that moment.
Yeah.
Like, in my mind.
Well, now we can talk about the passing game.
Yeah.
It's kind of going to build off the same point we've been talking about, and even with the first game, it's like, man, we've just had some near misses.
Mm-hmm.
Like the double move by Seth Anderson.
Right.
Granted, that was pressure in his face. I think Cade was actually throwing that ball away.
Mm-hmm.
I think he didn't. He just couldn't see what was going on, so he just put it deeper than he
knew
had
that.
to.
Yeah, that was his read. He just had to put it up there.
He missed another throw to Lachey on a 3rd and 15 that was open, but Lachey got kind of collision by a safety at like 15 yards, and it just threw off the timing. Another play where Lachey and Ostrenga ran into each other. I think Ostrenga's open on that one.
Yeah, and then obviously the Reganey pick and the Devines should have been PI in my mind.
Yeah, Devines is more PI. I think Reganey realized he wasn't going to get to the ball and kind of flopped.
Right.
But again, I like the underthrows on those.
Yeah.
Like, give your guy a chance. Don't try in high wireless and have you hit a guy in stride.
Yeah.
Play the play. If you're getting behind a guy, play the PI or play the great catch.
100%. Yeah.
And that's you could see Cade was frustrated with himself in that game. He was definitely riding the wave a lot.
He was riding one, and it's honestly, in my notes after the game, like, I rewatched it. I remember watching the game and then going back and rewatching it afterwards. he plays with a fire in his belly that we haven't had in a while.
Yeah.
That Beathard type of edge. Where
he's got a little. He talks some shit. He
came after we scored. If you watch it on TV after we scored our first touchdown to go up 10 rip, there's a clip of him going up to Tampa and getting in his face a little bit,
barking.
And how important that is for your QB to be that emotional leader is you can't put a number on it.
Well, he's obviously a guy because we saw it when he was at Michigan. Yeah, Michigan State. Yeah, I could think of him talking a little crap. When you engage like that, you want to play well after that so bad,
right?
And that just shows there's no fear in him. Yeah. And that again, like
he doesn't. He might just. It's kind of like the Reggie Miller stuff. Like, I don't talk to get in another person's head. I talk to get myself going.
So I got to back it up,
right? Yeah. And he's just a competitor. Like having a QB that has that competitive edge to him. Yeah. The entire team gets behind it because if he's going to hold himself with confidence and kind of attack the defense in a way. Yeah. Everyone is elevated by that. It's seen across any level of football or any sport. Like you need your best player. If your quarterback's your best player and also your best leader and has the emotional edge like that, it's so valuable to your team.
Well, I think another thing you mentioned this in the preview, what you expected him to do, and he did it exceptionally well. He does such a good job of just fading slightly to keep himself alive.
Keeps
in the
his poise.
And then he is never fazed by pressure.
No.
Granted, like when I said where he had pressure in his face, that was true pressure where if he doesn't get this ball out right now, he's getting sacked. Yeah. But there's so many times where there's a DN within 2 yards of him, and you couldn't tell by his throwing motion all that anyone's close to him. Mm-hmm. He does a good job of even like falling well when he gets hit. Right. Like he just is a QB. Yeah. It's like that's the best way to say it. He's just a QB. Yeah. And he makes plays you need to make. It's just high level play. And we gave him 23 throws. Mm-hmm. He completed 13 of them. It's like we're not giving him that many opportunities.
He probably had 6 more that were like razor thin opportunities too.
Yeah.
He did, an 80% good job on a few of them, and some of them were just like errors from the receiver, the tight end. But man, we just gotta take advantage of a good QB. Yeah. I just keep on going back to you don't get Cade at Iowa a lot, and then you stack a good defense, and then you stack 2 NFL tight ends, and this O-line, it's not having the results that the natural kind of novice fan is like, oh, the O-line's not playing that well. From me, rewatching a game, I think this O-line's very good.
The Dunker's playing well.
I think the pass protection has been unreal, which is a very good sign. There's no breakdowns. Yeah. I'm watching very few one-on-one losses in the run game. I'm seeing, the flow.
I'm seeing some melding blocks in the run game too. Dunker, one of the first counters we ran, it was just a head-up block on Peterson. Yeah. And you could see it was like an old Alaric Jackson block where the guy's just completely overwhelmed, completely I can't even get off this. There's not a chance. Right. That's a head-up block.
Yeah, and it's going to be played out the entire season that the O-line's not going to be able to kind of really flex its muscles. Yeah. But, by Game 6, when we start playing these, Northwestern or, Rutgers and stuff like that or Purdue, people are going to realize this O-line's, playing very well. Right now, game flow and, essentially, you're playing a good Iowa State defense. Yeah. They haven't been able to really have that adoration, but it's coming. Yeah. Richmond is playing at a very high level right now.
Colby's playing well, too.
Yes. And it's just –
what I love, too, is, and another thing we mention here is Patterson was unbelievable in pass protection.
Right.
Had 3 or 4 –
3 cut blocks.
3 cut blocks that were fantastic.
One was a double kill.
He might just be a guy we played 2/3 of snaps. I'm not even kidding you. He was that consistent in that game, played that well.
Yeah, as a coach who's trying to have coachable film, how to run hard and play your position. Yeah, you could not have played that position. Caleb's the more talented guy, I'd say. Yeah, but Patterson's the kind of the Iowa mold of if you're just better at playing our system than the more talented guy, we'll put you on the field.
Exactly.
So it'll be interesting. Yeah, and I think just having 2 NFL tight ends. I mean, Lachey and all didn't get really flex as much, but. There's one play where he's got 6 guys tackling him.
And he's all is psycho. Yeah. We saw it at Michigan. After the catch, he is not going to go down. He's going to try to keep his balance. Yeah. He is zero self-preservation too. Right. I love all. Yeah. And you see him on those counter plays too. The reason they wham him is because he comes in there with reckless abandon. Right. He's a football player. Yeah. I think what we'll see is actually because Lachey is great. Yeah. I think he's a great player. I think we're going to see more schemed up shots for all as the season goes on. Mm-hmm. Lachey is the incumbent. He's obviously going to be an NFL tight end. Right. But if you transpose all into some of those situations where he's moving just a little bit smoother.
Yeah, he's a step a half step faster.
not as clunky.
More body control.
I think that's going to be the thing we actually see like Game 6, Game 7, where All's earned his keep and they start targeting him more in those shot plays because he's just got some real giddy up to him.
It's kind of like that Hawkinson and Font progression where Font had the kind of the schemed up plays earlier in the year.
Yep.
And then Hawkins kind of came on later. And around Game 6, he was kind of the main target.
Exactly.
Nothing against Lachey. He's a hell of a player. Going to be an NFL tight end. But All's just got a little more.
You just seen a couple plays where he just, even running into those guys, like, just be smoother.
Yeah.
Like, you could be a little better of a receiver there.
Right.
We are happy to announce a new sponsor for the ANF Podcast. The ANF Podcast is sponsored by Eye Surgeons Associates, proudly serving Eastern Iowa and Western Illinois for all your eye care needs for over 40 years.
Let's go on Western Michigan now.
Yeah.
And we'll do a little season preview, like what we're seeing.
Yeah. Well, if you watch Western Michigan, it's actually really beneficial for Iowa, just for scouting, back-to-back weeks. They run an identical system to Iowa State. They run a 3-3-5 defense. They run it a lot worse. They have a hard time scheming up blitzes that hit consistently. Everything looks a little mistimed. They don't have the bodies up front. Their front 3D linemen. Their secondary is rough. Syracuse just played them last week and scored 41 points in the first half. Last year, Syracuse scored over 40 points one time in an entire game. This is a pretty mediocre team. It's a first-year program. They were pretty rough last year, and they lost their 3 best players to the transfer portal, all to Minnesota, I believe.
Yeah.
And so this team, this is a kind of a barren roster, complete rebuild, and it looks that way on film.
Comes at a good time, though.
Right. And Iowa fan or Iowa players are going to say, we're Western Michigan focused. I'd be hard to believe if any assistant coach doesn't have a Penn State film up on their monitor
every day
right now.
Yeah.
Because I think you look at one day of Western Michigan film and you go, we're going to run our stuff.
This is like in high school when the coach doesn't let you watch the film with the other team and they're so bad.
Right.
They're like,
these guys
got to go out and play.
Yeah, just execute what we do. But the scheme right now, it's perfectly timed because, we to kind of have probably a pretty consistent, 10-play playbook on offense and defense. Kind of a similar scheme on offense as well for Western Michigan. They're spread, non-runner for a QB, not a whole lot of talent on the field. So it's going to kind of be copy and paste on both sides of the ball. And I feel like they're going to have the game scripts going to be almost identical for both two.
We can see that counter look really well. And going back to the Iowa State game, when they would basically have that DN sit down on counter plays to them, you're talking about tight end, tackle, guard, all walling down.
Yeah.
And that's why that counter works so well. And that's what, for all those 3 fronts we're going to see for the rest of the year, we have a great play, that counter play. When you're going to overload one side, you're going to have you can just shift back so easily to that play.
And actually, I wanted to bring this up when we were breaking down the Iowa State game, but our 3 tight end sets has been the best set we've had on offense.
Yeah.
And that is so big for Iowa. Mm-hmm. If we can take receivers off the field and put fullbacks and tight ends on the field and have explosive ability in the passing game and the running game, we're going to live in that set going forward. We have had so many times where we can actually, crash down Lachey on a down block and then pin and pull Richmond, or any variation where we just have leads or powers out of it, and it's generated our best plays.
Yeah,
has been those 3 tight end sets or 2 tight ends and large at fullback. We're really seeing a lot of variety in those play calls, and Iowa feels very comfortable playing against pretty much anybody. We're going to be able to go to Penn State and Wisconsin and line up in those sets and go, this is what we do best. We can run and get explosive runs out of this, and we can counter and run play action to a lot of really talented tight ends and fullbacks.
Well, I think we mentioned this also in the Iowa State preview, and Brian almost followed it to a T, is when you get into these 3rd and 2s and you can come out in these heavy formations,
right?
Don't let them just gap you out. Yeah. Take advantage of that, run play action. You have to trust your O-line and your QB. And this season we can.
Yeah.
So then that's what we saw that large play out of the Shea from. It's don't just take it for granted that you can run for 2 yards here. Try and get 40. Try and get 35. Yeah. And that's how you become explosive while still running pretty heavy formations.
Yeah.
Again, you're starting to match these things together where if you trust your pass protection, you're not making miscommunications. You have a QB who handles late pressure well, can get out of play action well, and then you can throw to explosive tight ends. It's man, you're really starting to see the idea of what Brian wants to do coming into fruition.
Yeah, it's first time in a while that he's had this kind of setup. Where trust his QB, his O-line's veteran. and he's got the tight ends to,
really hurt you.
Run 3-4 tight ends on the field with Stylianos and Ostranga.
Yeah.
Have Large.
They look like they should be playing.
Right.
Large is essentially a fifth one.
Right. And so you have this really kind of has this kind of Wisconsin feel to the offense where you're going to be running.
It really feels a lot like Wisconsin.
Counter, power, play action.
Yeah.
And use these guys creatively, put a lot of pressure. Because when you're running just a general, 3 receiver, 1 tight end set, you don't have that itch as much as a 3 tight ends or 2 tight ends and a fullback on the field when you're on defense. You go, that's a lot of big bodies.
Yeah.
And if I'm not playing downhill as fast as I can and playing as hard as I can, this is going for 4.
Especially how defenses are built now.
Right.
We see a lot of 5 DB sets. I don't know if we'll see a single 4-3 this entire year outside of Northwestern.
Right.
So if you're, like you said, if you're going to come out there a little light in the ass, and we're going to line up with 3 tight ends, the onus is going to be on you to force the issue.
Right.
And if we can counter that on you, we're going to see a lot of big plays out of that.
Right. Yeah. It's a well-built Iowa team. I think that's talk about the forward-looking preview of the rest of the season. The West is looking wide open.
Yeah.
I mean, Minnesota's offense is really struggling to run the ball. The Illini, they're struggling on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Their defensive line is not what the caliber they expected. Their linebackers aren't playing well. Their DBs aren't good. Altmaier looks uncomfortable in the pocket. They don't have a true identity on offense. Wisconsin obviously just lost to Washington State for back-to-back years. They're going to go through growing pains. We kind of anticipated that in the season preview that it's not going to be a quick switch for them, and they're going to have this kind of growing into. Essentially, you only have 2 more games. Probably the rest of the season, you're not going to be favored.
Yeah.
Maybe
you might be in a pick 'em against Wisco.
Right.
Depending on how this season plays out.
Right now, if you had just do post Iowa State game, post week 2, I think Iowa would be favored in 9 of the remaining 10 games.
Yeah.
So it's kind of has that 2015 type of feel where Iowa went onto the road against Wisconsin, the first Big Ten game of the year, and stole one.
A little different team than what we're about to play.
Right. They had Corey Clement was out, and they had
Stave.
Not a Lar.
Yeah.
But it's got that feeling where when you win this Iowa State game and you got the schedule you got, clearly got a good team, expectations should be very high at this moment.
Yes.
Like from my point of view, we have a good line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. We have more skill than we generally do. We have a little bit of running back depth we've developed. Our QB's really good.
QB's very good.
And our defense is up to caliber.
Yeah.
So when you
I think that's almost selling the defense short a little bit, though.
Right.
Because you don't walk into this DB room almost ever.
Mm-hmm.
You have a true 5-star talent at safety.
Yeah.
Never have safety talent like that.
Yeah.
Most safeties that Iowa have played have barely made the league. Kavion, undrafted guy, just made the league. But like Geno Stone, I guess, too. But just not the same type of player. Monty Hooker, but that was more of a cash guy.
Yeah.
But he's playing strong safety, a lot more like a free this year.
Yeah.
Quinn Schulte is sit where we got to sit the seats. He is the guy who talks to every he talks to linebackers.
He's a leader of the team. Yeah.
Leader of the team. He's sorting out every problem.
Right.
And that's a great guy to have there.
He's holding the other players on his defense as accountable as the coaches are.
Yeah.
You watch on the very first third down of the game, or maybe second third down of the game on Iowa State, they run a slant right behind Jackson, and Schulte barely can stand up. He's so mad.
Yeah.
He spins around. He's like, how do we let that happen?
Yeah.
And when you have that type of level of frustration from a senior, and he's coaching up just as hard as the coaches are.
Yep.
Parker probably just lets him run some of the meetings.
He does.
Yeah.
Well, then you mix in potentially the best player we've ever had at the University of Iowa in DeGene.
Yeah.
And then a Phil Parker corner.
Yeah.
Jamari is what you want.
Right.
He's going to come up and tackle well. He's going to be anticipatory in the run game. And then he's going to probably make some plays in the pass game too.
Right.
You mix all that in together. It's there's not going to be a game this year where we don't compete. I think even Penn State, we're looking at a 10-point line.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if Penn State looks comfortable in offense.
Yeah.
I think they do move the ball between the 20s. We're going to be very passive. We're going to want to make this a very short game. We're going to make them possess.
Yeah.
Going to make sure that they can at least.
But Kirk's got a team he wants to play out every aspect of it.
Yes.
If you Kirk is going to have the ability to play Iowa football in all 12 games this year.
Yeah.
That is what is being played out right now from my point of view is that I have a hard time believing we're ever going to be down by more than 10 points in any game, even against Penn State on the road.
Yeah.
Without a drive to, make it a one-possession game or
– feel like we actually can do it too.
Right.
Go to your scripted plays, be able to protect, be able to get guys open that can get open.
All in the shake and be able to make plays in that game.
Yeah.
they're NFL caliber. So
I think what we've seen from Seth Anderson too is like he's a truly a good receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's a guy that can get open against big time guys. And make plays.
Yeah. It's just getting me excited. It's when you beat Iowa State and you got a good team.
Yeah.
The door's open.
You got a little breath of fresh air here too.
It's a little 2018-ish.
Yeah.
Where it's either going to be 2018 or it's going to be 2015.
Yep.
You got the team to do it. You got the skill to do it. You got the schedule to do it.
Yep.
How are we going to make plays in the close games?
It's either going to be depressing close losses or a great season.
It's going to be defined by those fourth quarters.
Yep.
And you're going to either win the West and have a chance to compete for a Big Ten title.
Having the QB in those moments, man.
That is huge.
That's huge.
Yeah.
All right, should we go into picks?
Let's do it.
So,
we got to.
Again, we're starting to get a little bit of a trend here. I went 2-1. My all unders plays worked out. Almost went 3-0 if it wasn't for a 31-point half by Northwestern against UTEP. Probably the most unlikely thing you could possibly ask for, but we'll take a 2-1 win. Now, moving on to 4-2 on the season. Kyle trusted the Bielemas again.
Yeah, the Fighting Bielemas let me down. Preseason hype around the Illini was unreal defensive line.
You bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Watched Altmaier in game 1, looked good.
Yeah.
This game, he looked lost.
Yeah.
Like, stopped his feet the entire time. They had no identity on offense the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were running inside zone was basically the only thing that worked. Like, just the entire team looked lost. UTEP wasn't a program. I was right about that. Kansas looks good.
Suck.
Yeah, they looked good.
Kansas got some players.
They got some real players. They got a running back, QB, plenty of receiver talent.
Some good D-line.
The Illini were just like consistently out-schemed the entire game.
Yeah.
I feel like their closest defender could have stopped them for 8 yards at minimum for most plays.
Yeah.
So that was a horrible bet. And then I lost the over or the under Northwestern UTEP game for the same reason you did.
Yeah.
So since I lost again, I have to do the punishment once again, which is eating the bomb and then doing my picks for this week.
We had actually a secondary punishment for week 2, but the chip has since been recalled after someone ate it and died.
Yeah.
So we're going to pass on that.
Yeah, it was the spicy chip alive. We had it in the studio. If I would have gone 0-3 week 1 or week 2,
Kyle might be the news story.
Yeah.
But
thankfully we didn't eat it beforehand. Now it's just in our, studio.
So we're going to just do the more, subdued the bomb.
Yeah, exactly. The bomb that nearly killed me last time.
And then we'll go into some picks here.
Yeah. So I lost 1-2 last week, 1-2 this week. So I did 2 drops
for 2
previous
losses.
week, and I had to do 4 this time because it's 4 consecutive. Wow. Jeez, that was a big one. 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
okay.
there you go.
That's a lot.
All right.
Oh, my God. I have water this time because beer made it horrible. So hopefully I have a little better experience.
All right. While you experience that, I'm going to go first this time. So Ohio plays ISU. Both teams run very passive zone schemes. ISU, as we saw, is going to struggle to be consistent on offense. Ohio, I don't think is going to have the firepower on offense to score against what we saw from ISU. ISU's got a really good secondary, just very well schemed up team. That's at 45 points. I think that's far too high. I think we're going to see like a 13-17 game. I'm taking the under in that one. Rutgers Vodtech, I cannot talk myself out of not taking a Rutgers under this entire season. They've already paid me off twice. They almost screwed me last game with a 31-point fourth quarter, but still went under. Vodtech is ran for like 40 yards a game. And so how I think this is going to play out is Rutgers is going to take an early game. They're a lot like Iowa where they salt games away.
All right, speed it up.
So I'm going to go with 39.5 under that. This is all on Monday. I'm sorry if these lines move. They probably will move down. Nebraska, NIU, final one. Under 46. NIU, Rocky Lombardi. They're going to be running the ball a ton. Nebraska might be moving to their backup QB. I think he's even more runner than Jeff Sims is. They're going to try and protect him. They run a 4 high safety look almost all the time. NIU is going to just have to possess the ball. Nebraska, I don't think, figures out an offense. If they do take a lead in this game, because they are projected to win by 2 scores, they're going to hold on to the ball another 40 under 46. Those are my 3 bets. Another 3 unders for you.
All right.
I'm 4-1 on unders for my bets.
I'm going to take the same bet Connor took for Nebraska, NIU, under 46. Same reasons. Nebraska minus 10.5 versus NIU. Homecoming for Rule. It's a night game. They're going to get it right. Penn State -14 versus Bielema. Screw Illinois. I'm here because of them. They're bad. And the last one, Penn State -2.5 versus Ohio. Identical game to last year. Iowa State's got a great defense. They'll find a way on offense. MAC teams are not very good. Those are my 3 picks. 4 picks.
All right.
Yep, we're going 2-2 this week minimum. Bounce back season. I'm not losing again. That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Thank you so much. Subscribe.
Yep, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.